Okay, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'm using the live stream feature on YouTube to record a video live as it's happening because it's something new to try because I have not done a live stream for a long time. Last time I did that was with Google Hangouts on Air when I was doing podcasts with Pothole and that sort of thing. So there are a few things that I would like to talk about. Something that's going on right now because I had previously recorded that I have surgery scheduled on September 17th is the plan, but that I'm going to be required to do a COVID-19 test 2 days before that. This is like a new requirement now during this pandemic that if you have surgery, they require you to have a COVID test and to self-isolate for 2 days. So it's a real pain in the ass, basically, because it's just made everything more complicated, people having to test. So I personally am annoyed at the idea that people have to have all these COVID tests and have to do all this extra stuff. So I don't like it from that aspect. However, my friend Monique, who I'm sure all visitors to my YouTube channel know very well by now, is very concerned about me. She's been sending me links. She's been calling me on the phone. She lectures me in the podcast that we do. And she keeps going on and on about how the COVID test could infect me and leak fluid from my brain and all this stuff, you know. And here's the thing about it is I never get a chance to say anything to her. I try, you know, but I want to explain the situation. I want to explain the situation both from my perspective and from her perspective, because this is kind of a hot topic right now. People are really concerned about about everything regarding this COVID-19 and the tests, the possible forced vaccines and stuff. And so here's the thing: is she sent me several links. I don't know if I can show you these links on a live stream, though. I'm not sure if I can do that or not. I mean, I could try to see if I could figure it out. I mean, this isn't a serious live stream. I'm just trying to figure something out. So I may have to read. I think what I'll do is I will read the first two links that Monique sent me that are actually very interesting. Now, one of the links, though, I'm not sure which one it was about a baby that died from a COVID test because the swab they were putting up the baby's nose broke or something and somehow killed this infant. So yeah, I mean, maybe the COVID test can be dangerous, but here's the thing. I cannot just refuse a COVID test or I don't get my surgery. That's the simple matter of fact. Monique's keep trying to tell me I should get a lawyer, I should call people for legal advice, all these kinds of things. And this is just my final word. I'm not doing all that nonsense because this is just a simple matter. You know, it's like if you don't do if you don't comply with the rules of your job, you lose your job. If you don't wear a mask when you go into Quick Trip, you can't shop there. If you don't go have a COVID test, you can't get surgery. You know, this is just a simple fact. I don't like it. I absolutely hate it. But this is just the way it is, that we're forced to abide by the rules, whether or not we like it. So this is the situation that, yeah, I'm going to do the COVID test. I'm going to do whatever is required to get my testicles removed. I'm having an orchiectomy. It's scheduled. I don't have the exact time yet, but it's going to be a hassle because I'll have to have the COVID test. I'll have to request time off work so I can self-isolate before the surgery and recover after the surgery. So it's going to use up my vacation time. I have to set up transportation, and it's just a big hassle. But it's is something that I need to have done. Therefore, I'll have to do the COVID test, whether or not Monique likes it or not. So that's just the way it is. But that said, that doesn't mean that Monique may not have a point about the COVID tests being dangerous. And I don't trust the COVID tests necessarily personally. I would rather have a blood test. Like if they can detect a virus, if there is a virus or antibodies or something in the blood, I would rather just have them draw blood out of my arm because that's relatively painless. On the other hand, sticking something up my nose sounds painful because let me tell you, whenever I have to pull nose hairs with a tweezer out of my nose, that makes me cry for a minute, you know? I don't want things stuck up my nose. But here is a link that Monique sent me. I wonder, is there a screen share feature on this? Is there a way to screen share within this thing? I don't know if there is or not. It would be cool if there was a way to screen share. Yeah. Oh, this is interesting. Hey, I know what I'll do. It looks like I can share my live stream to Facebook. So even though I hate Facebook, I guess I'll do it anyway, just because I do have a Facebook friends. In fact, I have over 3,000 Facebook friends, and that's because I play Love Nikki Dress Up Queen, which is a game on either iPhone or Android type phones. I have an old iPhone, but it still works. So I'm going to read to you the first link here. CDC labs were contaminated, delaying coronavirus testing, officials say. Fallout from the agency's failed rollout of national coronavirus kits 2 months ago continues to haunt U.S. efforts to combat the spread of the highly infectious virus. Okay. Sloppy laboratory practices at the Centers for Disease Control and Disease Control and Prevention caused contamination that rendered the nation's first coronavirus tests ineffective. Federal officials confirmed on Saturday. 2 of the 3 CDC laboratories in Atlanta that created the coronavirus test kits violated their own manufacturing standards, resulting in the agency sending tests that did not work to nearly all of the 100 state and local public health labs, according to the Food and Drug Administration. Early on, the FDA, which oversees laboratory tests, sent Dr. Timothy Stenzel, chief of in vitro diagnostics and radiological health, to the CDC labs to assess the problem. Several officials said he found an astonishing lack of expertise in commercial manufacturing and learned that nobody was in charge of the entire process. Problems range from researchers entering and exiting the coronavirus laboratories without changing their coats to test ingredients being assembled in the same room where researchers were working on positive coronavirus samples. Officials said these practices made the tests sent to public health labs unusable because they were contaminated with the coronavirus and produced some inconclusive results. So yeah, well, let's see. Do I want to read this whole thing? I don't think I'll necessarily read the whole thing. I'll give the link later on. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, this is awfully long. I don't want to read this whole thing necessarily. But yes, so there were tests that were actually contaminated with the coronavirus, supposedly, according to these government agencies. And this is a New York Times article. So I see there's also a chat here. I think there's like a chat here. So the way I've seen live streams work before is that people can actually like chat in real time. I'm currently the only one on, but I think if I put links in the chat, people will be able to see that later. Now, the next link that I want to read to you is a little bit more interesting and kind of funny too. So this next one, I'm going to put this link in the chat here. Let's see how it goes. Okay. Tanzanian president blames lab after goat papaya test positive for coronavirus. Tanzania seems to be having a problem with its animals, its coronavirus testing or its leadership amid a bizarre scandal playing out in the African nation. President John Magufuli has cast doubt on the country's coronavirus testing process after he allegedly submitted secret samples from invalid subjects, including a goat and a papaya, yes, the fruit, that came back as positive for the virus. Magufuli suspended head of testing at Tanzania's National Health Laboratory in response to the alleged errors on Monday, one day after revealing that he had flooded the lab with a variety of samples from things the virus shouldn't be able to infect. Magufuli, who has repeatedly downplayed the threat of the virus, claimed on Sunday that he put human names and ages on several samples taken from non-human subjects. He said the lab came back with positive test results for papaya, a quail, and a goat. And I believe that a quail is a type of bird, if I'm not mistaken. Three things that have never been linked to the virus in the past. Magufuli claimed that there is a dirty game going on at the laboratory and announced that his security forces would be investigating the test kits. He did not say where the lab got its kits. The equipment or the people may be compromised, and sometimes it can be sabotage. Magufuli said in a speech to the nation, which was broadcast through the country's state-run news outlet. The supposed false positive suggests that Tanzania's infection numbers might not be accurate, Magufuli said. He also stoked concerns about accepting foreign aid. There is something happening, Magufuli said. I said that we should not accept that every aid is meant to be good for this nation. He also claimed that he was sending a plane to collect a bit of foreign aid from Madagascar's president, who has been touting a bogus herbal remedy for the virus. The medicine will be brought in the country so that Tanzanians too can benefit, he said. The country hasn't reported any new data on COVID-19 infections since Sunday, when the number stood at 480 cases and 17 deaths. That's likely because the country's testing lab is now under investigation. Tanzania has been accused of politicizing virus data in the past. Last fall, for example, it refused to share samples collected for Ebola testing with the international community amid a broader outbreak in Africa. Let's see. Yeah, okay. So yeah, that's pretty much the end of it. There's just a few more things about the symptoms of COVID-19, supposedly. Now, what I want to talk about, though, is this. Okay, if a fruit can test positive for this virus, supposedly, what does that tell you? Because a virus that infects animals is not going to infect a plant. So clearly, this is a false positive. And and I explained this in my recent podcast with Monique and our two other people we had on. But unfortunately, that episode ended up longer than planned. It was meant to be 45 minutes. It ended up being 3 hours and 15 minutes. It was just too long. So I wanted to make a shorter thing and re-explain this. So let's just say for a moment that we believe that this COVID-19 is really the deadly virus that the government tells us. Just for the sake of this example, let's say that this is a really bad virus. So if you have a test that is supposed to test for this virus, if it gives you a false positive, then because you have a positive result, you won't be allowed entry to your job. You'll have to isolate from your family, your friends, your children, your parents, whatever, So a false positive means your life is put on hold or destroyed because you got that positive result, even if whether or not that result was accurate. And if you get a false negative and you do have a deadly virus, you get a false negative, you go to work, you infect all your coworkers if they're around you too much and somehow get it from you. So here's what it comes down to. We cannot trust something that's not 100% accurate. And even if the test itself is 100% accurate, there's the problem of human error. And as I explained in the podcast recently with Monique, even pregnancy tests can give false positives and false negatives, because like a pregnancy test only tests for the presence of a certain hormone, the HCG or something like that, that is present in a pregnancy. But other things can cause that. So people can think they're pregnant when they're not, or they could think they're not pregnant when they are. So if pregnancy tests are not 100% accurate, and we know that a coronavirus test can give a false positive for a fruit, then here's the truth. There's no way anyone, me or any government official, can tell you that this is a certain number of people who have been infected with the virus. This is how many people who have died based on this virus. When they give you stats that these things happen, any stats that anyone gives you are made up. They have to be made up. They can be approximated closely to the truth, perhaps, but people have political incentive to lie about the virus. They have financial incentive to lie about the virus. For example, the more people that they have the country believing have died from this virus, the more willing people will be to accept social distancing, masks, vaccines, all of these types of things that they're trying to roll out. So the more scared people get, the more people believe that this virus is killing millions of people, then the more willing they are to comply. Now, here's the simple matter, is that I'm forced to comply with wearing a mask at work, and I have to have a COVID test before I can have my testicles removed in September. Not because I believe the lies, but because if I don't do it, then it's like, oh, well, if you don't do it, then we won't do your surgery. That's just how it goes, because they can get in trouble. The medical people can get in trouble if they don't test patients for COVID-19, because you have to understand that even the things people are doing that annoy you, they are doing it because they have authorities over them telling them to do it. That's the thing you have to understand. People are under rules from their employer, their government, and the laws of their country. Similar to how, for example, Christians or Muslims are under the authority of their God that they believe in. They do things like, try to preach to people, for example, because they think it's a commandment from their God. So you have to understand that a lot of what people do is not what they want to do. I think this is important to understand. At least half of what humans are doing is not because they want to do it. It's because they're doing it for their own survival. Like, obviously, a lot of people would not be doing their job if they were not being paid for doing their job. That's just a fact. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, basically, this has been a very hard time for me recently, just because, I've been having the fight with trying to get my testicles removed for 2 years, and I finally have a urologist who says he's willing to do it, which is good news. It's really good news. But then, of course, Monique's concerned about the COVID test killing me. So we'll see what happens. I'll either have the COVID test, get a negative result, and have my surgery, and then be fine, or I will get infected with COVID-19 and then die, and then I won't need my testicles removed because I'll be dead. So either way, it works. You get what I'm saying? So one way or another, I'll be out of my suffering. But this whole thing with lockdowns, businesses being closed and then being forced to wear a mask at work, and mandatory COVID tests, all of this has been very hard on everyone in this country and other places in the world. Other countries are having similar things going on because everybody's scared of coronavirus except me. I'm not actually scared of coronavirus because either this virus is a hoax. I still kind of believe it could be a hoax. But even if it's not a hoax, and even if there really is this deadly virus, well, then maybe it'll just kill us and get it over with. You know what I'm saying? And speaking of death, a coworker of mine committed suicide. And it's not hard to see why when you consider how depressed people are at this time. So I just think it's important to understand that, this has been hard on everyone. And people, they want to survive. People, they are afraid of a virus killing them. The people are afraid of these types of things. But at the same time, living in fear really isn't a way of living, because if the whole time you are alive, you're just constantly afraid of everything, and you spend your whole life just in fight or flight mode and trying to protect yourself from every type of evil thing out there, well, then you're not living, because you're not enjoying anything. I feel like, quality of life is important too. It's not just about how long you live, and it's not just about the physical health of your body. It's like, are you really enjoying your life? And that's what I want to focus on right now is, it's the weekend and I want to focus on enjoying my life. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to play some Minecraft, maybe watch some movies, eat my burritos. I just ordered Taco Bell. So that's what I want to do is I want to focus on my own happiness, because that's all I can do is work my job during the week and then try to relax somewhat on weekends as much as I'm able to, which means that hopefully Monique won't keep calling me and scaring me with all these things. So that's just the way it's going. So I guess I'll end this live stream now, but I just wanted to give my opinion on, this whole COVID-19 thing and these swab tests. What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask if they can just do a blood test instead of a swab test, because it doesn't bother me to have my skin pricked and have blood extracted. That doesn't bother me, but it does sound painful, something going up my nose. But regardless, whatever test they do, they'll have to do, and hopefully I'll get my surgery. So I just hope that's what happens. And until then, I'm just going to try to enjoy myself on weekends. I'm going to try to work my job the best I can, which is very hard to do because wearing a mask really does slow me down because I can't breathe. So I'm not doing as well at shelving at my job, but there's nothing I can really do about that. I just hope that the mask mandate ends eventually, but I really don't know what's going to happen, because it's quite possible this COVID thing will just go on forever. You know what I'm saying? Like, what if the next 10 years, everyone has to wear masks and people have to get COVID tests before certain things? I really hope not. But if this continues for much longer, a lot of people are really going to go mad. There's going to be a lot of people who are just going to go insane because, people are really, people are just really struggling. Because most people are social creatures. I'm not really that social myself. You might think I am because I do podcasts with people all the time, but it's more of a thing that I want information to get out there, because I do care about the lives of people, and particularly, especially the animals. And that's why I want everyone to go vegan, obviously. But I just think that's important, People really do, people, all lives matter. I got to say it, people think only Black lives matter, but all lives matter, White lives matter, and all other animal lives matter, and even plant lives matter, because without any plants, there's no oxygen. Not that we can breathe oxygen anyway, because we have to wear masks, but it's the principle of the thing. So I'm not sure if anybody cares what I've said here, but I just, you know what? I got to have the COVID test whether I like it or not. And if it infects my brain and leaks fluid from my brain and I die from that, well, then I don't need to worry about surgery. So I'm trying to have a somewhat positive attitude, and that's the best I can do. What can I do, right? So time for some burritos and Minecraft.